floor to the representative of Malaysia.
Madam President, at the outset, allow me to commend you for convening this timely open debate on children and armed conflict. I wish to thank Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Madam Virginia Gamba, the Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict, for their respective remarks. Also, our appreciation to Mr. Mubin Sheikh for sharing his valuable and insightful experiences as a former recruited child soldier and his continuous work in preventing children from joining terrorist groups. Madam President, there can be no doubt in our shared international commitments on the development, preservation, and protection of children in situations of armed conflicts over the past 2 decades at the Security Council. We recognize that this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Paris Principles and Commitments. It is an important instrumental framework that continues to guide our collective efforts towards the release and reintegration of children associated with armed groups. The overall reintegration strategies must take into account of the special needs of girls who are at greater risk of rape and sexual violence, exploitation, and abuses. We wish to highlight the plight of second-generation children of armed conflict, namely the children born of war, and the need to also recognize this group as victims in post-conflict settings. We must be clear that ending and preventing grave violation against children is only one side of the coin. Equally important is ensuring that appropriate mechanism and community-based reintegration programs are in place to facilitate the long-term efforts of reconciliation and rehabilitations of victimized children into their respective communities. Madam President, we are conscious of the fact that a large number of parties listed in the annexes of the Secretary General's report comprise of non-state armed groups from a wide array of groups with diverse motives and operating in vastly different circumstances. It is important to acknowledge that there can be no one-size-fits-all approach in addressing non-state armed groups. Each must be dealt with in accordance to the unique context in which they operate. We believe that further analysis on these groups would be invaluable to ensure a more tailored approach, both by the operational actors on the ground as well as by the Security Council. Our discussions today raises several crucial questions on how the tools at our disposal, including exploring non-exhaustive solutions and concrete actions that can be used to influence non-state armed groups to safeguard the lives of children. Madam President, my delegation emphasizes the importance for the UN, the Security Council and member states to consult and cooperate closely with each other in dealing with non-state armed groups to ensure that sustainable measures are being undertaken to improve the situation of children in armed conflicts. Malaysia views that peace processes provide a critical forum of engagement with non-state armed groups and calls for child protection provisions to be integrated in all peace processes, negotiations, and agreements. Mr. President, Madam, in conclusion, the concerted efforts of all actors and stakeholders are vital in ending the grievous violations and abuses committed against children. I assure you of my delegation's commitment in working with the international community to play a constructive role towards this end. I thank you.
I'd like to thank the representative of Malaysia for his statement, and